Linked list is a topic which I feel is that, if you do all the question that I have given you in the seat, okay, and if you understand all these things theoretically and conceptually without, mugging it, right? I can give you 100% guarantee that, if somebody asks you any question from the linked list, you'll be able to 100% solve it. And this is that kind of topic, okay. Even if I ask you to solve like 5,000 questions in the arrays, I cannot give you that guarantee, and nobody can give you the guarantee because array is such a tricky topic that, somebody can ask you any trick question in that. But linked list is not a tricky; it's a conceptual topic. If your concepts are right, if you know how to, play with the linked list, whatever the question somebody can ask you, you can always solve it in the real time, in the presence of anybody else. So this is why linked list becomes very important topic. You should definitely try to work hard on it, or with a crystal clear concept, so that you are not missing any of the question. Once you have solved like 10, 20, 30 questions on the linked list, I can guarantee you that you can solve any question in the linked list, any interview, right? And again, linked list is one of the favorite topic in most of the interviews. Any good company, if you go and apply for, they will definitely have few questions around the linked list. For example, Amazon, one of the hottest topic in the Amazon interviews around the linked list and the tree. And again, tree is also like a linked list. If you have solved enough questions in the tree, there is no way that somebody can trick you in the tree questions, right? So tree and the linked list is one of the hottest topic of the Amazon. Similarly, in the other companies also like Microsoft, LinkedIn, and all, right? In the starting few rounds, definitely you will find a question on the linked list. And all the mid-tier companies like Walmart and all those stuff, again, linked list is something they will definitely ask you from. So this becomes very important topic. And if you have a good hold on the linked list, definitely, out of like 2-3 rounds, there will be 2-3 questions will be from the linked list, and it give you a better opportunity in converting the interview. So please mark my words. Take linked list very seriously, and try to master it so that any question that comes to the interview, you guys are able to solve this up. Okay.
Can I just ask you one question?
Paritosh, go ahead.
If I'm using C# as my language, and in Java, I don't know, but in C# we have generics. I guess in Java is also use the word generics, and like we have and all those things. So my question to you is, where in the application, like suppose if you're working in Amazon or LinkedIn, how these concepts are used in main application? Like what is the need of linked list? How will you use it? We can do the same thing with list, right?
Even I have also the same question. So
Okay.
I was learning, and when I was working, I was every time I think like where this linked list will come. Array we can understand. Okay, array we have multiple options to work on, but linked list I can't find. So
And Vishwa, one more thing. Another question is, I was just reading an interview about a girl who has cracked Microsoft, and she said that in the interview they asked me entire data structure. What is entire data structure? So I went on the net and I saw that it is something. When you search Bing or Google search or something, they use a structure which basically gets all the data in efficient manner. When you use these concepts like entire data structure and all these things, search engine and all that, they must be using database, right? For example, if there is a database, and suppose if I want to autocomplete autocomplete text box, and the autocomplete text box, suppose if I want to find customers, and the customers is 50 lakhs customers, okay, or 50 lakhs products in Amazon, and I am finding mobile phone, I'll do a autocomplete with jQuery or Angular, and in the backend I'll write a simple query, get me the products whose type is smartphone, and that it will get me the list of the product. Now here where these things comes into picture, I want to understand that.
Okay. I'll take one after the another each of the question. Like the first question was that where in the like in any other language, for example, as you said in the C# you have something called list. Similarly in the Java, it is a collection something called array list. Okay, and similarly in all the other languages we have. So if you go and see the internal implementation of this list in your C#, or if you go and see the internal implementation of array list in the Java, you will figure it out. Internally, they are linked lists itself. Right. So if you go and see the source code of your list in C#, you realize that it's nothing but a linked list. Okay. So this is your first answer to that question. The second question is that not only you, but I have heard from the many of my students, like, why do we need to learn all this data structure? Why do we need to learn sorting? Because in every language that we work on, they have an inbuilt sorting function. We can directly use it. Why do we need to learn how to implement tree or how to implement linked list when every language has a standard library which provides the data structure which can directly use it? Or the other way, if I have to ask, why do we need to learn data structures and algorithm? Or is it only for the interviews that people ask how to traverse the tree and the graph? Do we have any real life implementation in the real project as well? Right? So answer to all these questions is this. So yes, every language have implemented all the standard data structure. So any language you took will have a support for list, it will have a support for arrays, it will have support for map, it will have the support for the tree. Now the question is, why do we need to learn this? Why do we need to implement this? See, so for example, what happens is that if you're working in the mid-tier companies, right? For example, the Oracle. So basically, these kind of companies are trying to solve those problems which is already present for a period of time. People already know how to solve it, right? And as a result of which, we already have few ready-made solution for these kind of problems. So that is why every language have a built-in function or a built-in data structure to support these kind of problems, and we can easily solve it out. But think about, if suppose you get to work in some company which is trying to solve which is unknown, which nobody has solved as of now. I'll take example of my company right now, LinkedIn. So what happens in LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is at such a scale right now, okay, in such a scale in the professional network that no but other company has reached till that date, right? So the problem with the LinkedIn has to solve has not been solved previously by any other company or any other organization, right? So we have to deal with few unknowns. Now, if these problems are unknown, right, even the languages, native support. For example, every language have some native support for some data structures and algorithm. Now, they were not knowing that these kind of problem can happen, so they don't have a support for these kind of scenarios. Again, take example of Google also, right? So Google has to play with so much of data. The scale at which the Google operates, no other company has ever thought of, right? So the problem which Google is solving is not something which has already been solved. Every day they are solving a new problem. They are moving into an unknown territory, right? So how do we do it? So in the case, only if they know from the basic, from the scratch, that how all the data structures have been implemented and how we can play with it, they have some previously developed knowledge on the top of which they can build some new data structures and then they can solve it. But if they just keep on depending on the feature that has been provided by default from the languages, they will not able to do it, because then their hands are bounded, because they only know that okay, for sorting there's only one thing, which is array.sort, which is provided by the Java. But only if they know that okay, there are other ways of sorting as well, like for example we have a bubble sort, insertion sort, selection sort, there are so many other count sort, there are so many new sorting algorithm which is getting researched every day. Only if they know that okay, there are few other research things that I can apply here to build some new sorting algorithm which can operate on this scale of the data, then it makes sense, right? So on a high level, just I want to say is that if you have to solve any trivial problem which the whole world already knows, right, for that the out of box algorithms or out of box data structure which a language provides is sufficient to solve those problems. No problem in that. The real utilization of this concept that you are learning will only come into the play when you have to think something new, when you have to think something build, when you have to solve some really unknown problems which nobody has seen. In that case, this concept which you have built, you have understood while understanding this data structure and algorithm will come into the play. Will actually you will utilize building a new thing. Only when you know your basics, right, that how these are built, you can think of building anything new, because out of a sudden you cannot start building anything new, right? So for that you need to set your basics right, and that is why we need to study this data structures algorithm. And that is why in any of these big top tier companies, who are actually solving these unknown problems, they are putting so much of stress on the basics, on the data structure algorithm. So if you take any Google interview, right, the question that they ask is always simple. They will never ask you any trick question, right? But at the same time, in each of the question, they will try to drill you deep so that they get to know that whether you understand things better or not. What is the time complexity? Why it is so that is the time complexity? So that is why understanding these data structures and algorithm becomes important if you are actually planning to move into those kind of companies where actual implementation come into the play. Does that answer your question? Does that make
Yes,
sense, Paritosh?
yes, Vishwa. Thanks.
Perfect. And the another question was that I think something around the database you're saying, right? I just missed. Can you please?
There was a scenario where the girl explained that we can use entire data structure for finding out millions of searches.
Got your point. Got your point. So normally I'll take example of Flipkart and help you to clarify your doubt. So for example, on the Flipkart, when you click on any item, right, and it gives you, as soon as you type the alphabets, you get the list of the available, items in that one, top 5, right? So normally you store the items in the database. That is very right? But between the database and the front end application, there are so many things that you do in order to optimize the operation, because the load time should be as minimal as possible, because if the load time is in like seconds, nobody will buy any item from your website. So what they do is that they manage the multiple layer of caches, right? So what they do is that normally for this kind of, the try is a data structure which we'll anyway going to cover in the coming session. Try, data structure, and ternary search tree. So these are the two data structure normally we use for these kind of cases, right? So normally what we do is that we don't load the data in a real time from the database, right? So we try to maintain a cache which provides a very high IO throughput, right? So within a milli of second, you can load 100 of records from that. And in that cache, in the memory, we try to maintain a kind of ternary search tree or the try data structure, which basically, if when you as soon as you pass any alphabet, is try to match what are the matching words to it, and then it with that matching word, it tries to fetch the data from the cache. So actually, in the real time, you're not fetching anything from the database because that will be unoptimal. So you keep on loading the cache in the background, even somebody is not there. You keep on refreshing the cache. And on the real time, whenever you do it, in the in-memory, we'll have some kind of ternary data structure, ternary search data structure, or the try tree. And with that, it will try to hit the cache and get the data. So normally how it is implemented in the different companies, whether it's a Flipkart or whether it's Amazon, right? Whether it's, for example, in the LinkedIn search, when you search for anybody's name, it doesn't mean that it will go to the database and get the data. They have some data already in the cache and with which you'll get the result.
Okay. Thanks.